Hello and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So we're carrying on with our Psyker series, and today we have
Lord
another staff build
Margrave
for you.
should...
There we go, just get stop talking. We have another staff build for you. So let's jump in and take a look. So this build's going to be based around the Purgatus 4 staff, which is the flamethrower staff. And we're going to start with our melee weapon, which is, as usual, the Demius Mark IV Blaze Force Sword. But again, as I've said in the other videos, if you prefer a different melee weapon, it's totally viable to switch these out. As an alternative, you've got the Markabian Mark IV Dueling Sword. Very good weapon, very fun to use. The only thing about dueling swords, you cannot quell perils with them. You can with four swords, but not dueling swords. So that's the only downside. If you did decide to use the dueling sword, I'd highly recommend going with Maniac damage and crit chance. Or if you don't want the crit, Maniac and flak. If you really, really want to, you can change them both to Carapace and Unyielding, just so if you get cornered by crushers, you can deal with them very, very quickly. But that does pigeonhole you into having a lot less damage against everything else. So I tend to stick with Maniac and crit, because most of the things you're going to be up against are going to be Maniac mobs. So for example, flamers, bombers, snipers, tox bombers, all that sort of thing. And rages. But it is totally up to you how you go around with this melee weapon. So if you're not a fan of the force swords, use a dueling sword, a dagger, a shock maul, anything you like. But an alternative to the Demius, the way I've built it, is also the deflector version. And the deflector is very, very useful in dealing with overwhelming fire from gunners, because they're absolutely rampant at the moment, or at least at time of recording they are. So if you don't want to go for the full damage, which is slaughter uncanny strikes, you can always switch out for deflection and uncanny strikes. And you can do the same with the Ilias. You can basically build it the same way, it's just a slightly different attack pattern. I just tend to prefer the Demius because it's more versatile. It not only does very strong single target, it has quite a wide reach with the two slashes. And all of its heavy attacks are very headshot centric. Right, so that's the melee weapon sorted. Let's go on to the ranged weapon. So we're using the Rifthaven Mark II Purgatus 4 staff. And with this, we are building it like this. So increased range critical strike damage by 5%. We're stacking a lot of crit in this build. As we do in most builds, crit really does help out the Psyker a lot more than it does other classes. I think it helps out even more than it does on the Zealot. So we've gone with that. And as this is a wide AoE weapon, I've gone for staying with range damage elites. So during mixed hordes, this is going to be hurting elites a little bit more. If you want to, you can change this to flak or maniac. They are two decent options as well, but I would never put unyielding or carapace on this, because you would not be doing enough damage to either to really make it worth it. Blessings wise, we're going with Warp Nexus. We're gaining between 5 and 20% critical chance based on current levels of perils, and Warp Flurry, 8.5% charge time on changed secondary attacks, stacks 3 times. This was nerfed down to 8.5 from 10 a while back, which is sad, but it's still pretty decent. So the more we use the staff, the quicker the charge time is going to be. Right, let's go for the curios. Again, I've said in the other videos, you can change these up if you want to. If you want to go for 2 toughness curios, that's completely fine. Or if you want to go for 2 health, that is also usable. I like to go for a little bit of a spread, so we're using a toughness curio with increased toughness, combat ability regeneration, and damage resistance gunners. And the next one is health with increased health, combat ability regeneration, and damage resistance gunners. The only one I would say is completely necessary for this build is this one. As a Psyker, if you're playing Damnation and up, you really do need to have a stamina trinket. It's going to help you stay alive. It gives you the ability to dodge more, and it gives you the ability to block more. Without this, as the Psyker, you will be overwhelmed very easily. And as you can see there, I have 3 pips more of stamina, which is going to help me stay alive when things get overwhelming, which they can do in a heartbeat in this game. Even if you're playing at the top of your ability, if the AI director decides to send in a couple of swarms of rages and maulers, you have to backpedal. So that is why I always say you really do want to keep a stamina trinket on you at all times. It's very important. You do lose a bit of overall defense, but I would say being able to defend yourself is better than just inherent increased defense. So that's my thinking of it anyway. Right, so look at the talents. So we'll start over here on the left. We're going to be right. Sorry, we're going to be metal. Critical hits replenish 5% toughness. Also grant 5% movement speed for 4 seconds. Stacks 3 times. You get 15% increased movement speed with all that crit. Perfect timing. 3% warp damage for 10 seconds on critical hits. Stacks 5 times. Warp expenditure replenish 2.5% toughness for every 10% perils generated. And we're taking the toughness boost node down here. And then we're grabbing Soul Stealer. Replenish 7.5% toughness on warp attack kill. We're going to be using our warp attack basically all the time. Quietude, replenish 5% toughness for each 10% of perils quelled. We're going to be quelling up and down like a madman because we are not using Venting Shriek. And as this is a fire build, we're going to be taking Perilous Combustion just to help spread that Soul Blaze around. Then we're grabbing the toughness node here, and we're grabbing Brain Rupture and all of its tertiary points. Kinetic Resonance, using your combat ability, makes your Brain Rupture charge 75% faster and generate 50% less perils. Our combat ability is... Oh, we are using Venting Shriek. Sorry, I got very confused there. We are using Venting Shriek. I'm recording videos back to back. I apologise. So when we use Venting Shriek, your combat ability makes your Brain Rupture charge 75% faster and generate 50% less perils, which is Venting Shriek. And then we're using Kinetic Flare. You have a 10% chance on all attacks to hit Brain Rupture on hit to Brain Rupture the target. This cannot occur at critical perils and has a 15-second cooldown. I think this is a wildly unfair cooldown for how good the ability is. If it prioritized elite targets, even then I'd say 10 seconds is a better cooldown for it. But this is totally random and will mostly go off on Poxwalkers. Although every now and again it will clutch for you. So, you know. But 15 seconds is just a ludicrous cooldown, in my opinion. Next up, we're going for Wildfire. When an enemy dies while affected by your Soul Blaze, nearby enemies each gain up to 4 stacks of Soul Blaze. They cannot earn more stacks than the dying enemy had, which is fine. This is just going to help us spread damage around. Psychokinetic Aura decreases the cooldown for you and your allies' coherency by 5% on elite or special kill. It's going to let us use this Venting Shriek a lot more. Seer's Presence, 10% cooldown reduction on abilities for you and allies in coherency. And then, as always, Empathic Evasion. I keep saying this, but I do think this is one of the best talents in the Psyker's skill tree. It's incredibly good, especially if you're stacking huge amounts of crit, which most Psyker builds will. A critical hit makes you count as dodging against range attacks for 1 second. This will save you more than you can ever know. It's an incredibly good talent. The next up, one with the Warp, came toughness damage reduction of 10 to 33% based on your current perils. We're going to be riding those perils pretty high. We want to be about 85% at all times. And then we're going into Venting Shriek, which I accidentally forgot we had. Which is fine. I'm not perfect. Unleashes a wave of warp energy that staggers enemies in front of you and quells 50% perils. Base cooldown 30 seconds. Then Becoming Eruption, Venting Shriek now decreases perils generated by 1% for each enemy hit, stacking 25 times, last 5 seconds. And then Creeping Flames, Venting Shriek applies 1 to 6 stacks of Soul Blaze to the target, hit based on your current perils. We are going to be riding those perils extremely high, so both of these are going to help us massively. And then down here, we're going into Peril Resistance, increased health, critical hit chance, Warp Rider, deal up to 20% damage increased as your perils increases, toughness boost, and then we're going into Empowered Psionics. So Empowered Psionics is going to make our Brain Rupture cost 100% less perils, cast time is 50% faster, and the damage is increased by 50%. And then we're going to be grabbing Overpowering Souls, guaranteed chance to gain Empowered Psionics on elite kill, and then charged up, you can now hold 3 stacks of Empowered Psionics. This is very, very good, but you will find Brain Rupture is still a little lacking in the damage department. But this, combined with this, gives us a very well-rounded toolkit. Brain Rupture is going to be your sniping tool for getting rid of specials, snipers, heavy targets, anything. You're going to have a lot of stacks of empowered psionics, and this is just going to help you clear out anything that's incredibly dangerous to your team. If it is outside of your ability to hit with your Purge Test staff, you want to brain burst it. So the Purge Test staff is for dealing with hordes and mixed hordes. Brain Rupture is for dealing with anything that is not coming in within range that you need to kill now. And it's quite a fun ability to use, Brain Rupture. It's the classic Psyker ability. So if you played before the talent trees came in, you'll know this is all we had for a very long time. But it does get better with empowered psionics. But even I find sometimes I'm very disappointed. I'm brain bursting a crusher, and it just seems to be doing nothing to it. So I do think it needs a buff. But there you go. That is the Purge Test a brain bursting build. I do hope you guys enjoy it. You can run around and basically just cast this on everything. But before we wrap up the video, I will say, do not forget, with the Purge Test staff, you do not have to charge it all the way up and just stand there and spray. If you have to backpedal, your left click ability does stagger. So if you have to, keep moving, keep throwing out the left click, stacking up those Soul Blaze debuffs, and staggering stuff as you go. Because sometimes you will not have the opportunity to just stand, charge, and let rip. Obviously, that is the most opportune way of doing it, but if you have to, remember, single attack, move, dodge, and just keep going until it's safe for you to pull back, and then spray and pray. And of course, Venting Shriek gets us out of any little troubles. It's quite a high damage build. Obviously, it's not high damage up front, but once you start ramping up and going, everything's going to have massive amounts of Soul Blaze stacks, as well as being damaged by the staff. And then, if you need to, as I said, with Empowered Psionics, you can brain burst whatever you need to. And usually a brain burst kill will give you another stack of empowered psionics, so you can just keep going over and over and over. But as you can see, without it, the damage does drop drastically. So only use it in an emergency or when you have these stacks of empowered psionics. But yeah, there you go. That is the build. I really do hope you enjoy it, guys. And if you do, please do comment, like, subscribe, and do all that great stuff. It really does help us out. And I shall see you all for the next one. So until then, take it easy, and I'll see you later.